Hey guys, what's going on? Jeff here from Films at Home, and today we're going to do another episode of the Boutique Blu-ray Spotlight, and we're going to focus on Vinegar Syndrome. Hey everyone, so thanks for coming back to this video. Before we get started, I want to mention that again, this series has been sponsored by Family Video, so shout out to them. They have a Vinegar Syndrome sale going on right now. I will give you details at the end of this video on how you can use my discount code to pick up a few of the titles or a bunch of other stuff from Vinegar Syndrome at the end of the video. But with that being said, let's jump right into it and cover what Vinegar Syndrome is all about and what they are as a physical media label. So Vinegar Syndrome is actually one of the more recent physical media labels out there, one of the more recent boutique Blu-ray labels, because they were only founded in 2012. We're talking, 5 years easily since Blu-rays hit the market that they're jumping into the game with Blu-ray and DVD releases. So, they had kind of an uphill battle to get where they are now. Their first release actually came out in 2013, and their main focus at the time was actually doing X-rated films. Not that they were associated with the pornographic industry at all, but they were restoring X-rated films that they thought were culturally relevant because they didn't want them to be lost to time. So their first releases in 2013 were actually some Herschel Gordon Lewis movies. They put out a 3-box set of the lost films of Herschel Gordon Lewis, which were previously thought to be lost. And that's what Vinegar Syndrome has become very well known for, is their film preservation, restoring what was previously lost or severely damaged movies, finding great prints of them, and putting them out on quality Blu-ray and DVD releases. So a little background on Vinegar Syndrome. They were founded by Ray Emerson and Joe Rubin, and they're actually headquartered right in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which is probably like a 2.5 hour drive from me. So it's very interesting. They're not located in New York City or LA or anything like that. They're in Connecticut, they're in New England, and they're a small location. They actually have a store called The Archive, which is also in Connecticut. That is a video store where they sell Vinegar Syndrome titles out of, and that is where they run their operation as well. So a really interesting small company, but to date they've restored over 500 feature films in their catalog, which is, according to them on their website, the largest of any independent distributor out there. I'm not sure, I'd have to match those numbers up to, Arrow Video and Scream Factory, Shout Factory, but they claim that they have the largest. Maybe they don't consider those guys to be independent, but either way, it's a huge catalog that they've worked on in just a short few 7 or 8 years. And so about their name, a lot of people ask, what Vinegar Syndrome, where do you come up with that name? And it's very unique, but it's also relevant to exactly what they do. Vinegar Syndrome is actually the name for the chemical process that starts to deteriorate film reels. And so I don't know chemistry, not a chemical person, but that's what they call it. Vinegar Syndrome, it's the problem with deteriorating film reels. And so they named their label this because they are literally in a constant race against time to get these movies restored as they deteriorate more and more each day that films aren't restored. If the reels are just sitting there, they will eventually break down if they're not preserved correctly, if they're not restored and backed up digitally. And so that's what Vinegar Syndrome's goal has been, is to keep the preservation of films alive and alive on physical media. So since they started with sort of these sexploitation, X-rated movies, they've really branched out beyond that. They have a few different labels that they operate under. American Film Genre Archive is one, which is some really odd stuff. They work with the Library of Congress on some, lesser known releases, but now they're into horror movies big time, which is where they really started to get my attention. They're doing more cult movies, action movies, and the primary focus is movies from the 60s to the 80s. So it's right in that sweet spot of those movies that you'd find at your Blockbuster in the late 80s, early 90s, throughout the 80s in your video store. And that's what's kind of so cool about their catalog. So I want to show off a few releases from Vinegar Syndrome that I currently have in my collection to give you a little sampling of what they have. The first couple here are both like the sexploitation type movies. First one is A Touch of Genie. This one's from 1974. It's a comedy, but it's, it's a more X-rated. Not that it's, I don't think it's actually X-rated. I think that most of these are just unrated, but it is newly scanned and restored in 2K from the original 35mm, has some special features. They always come in these cool white cases as well, and they do have reversible cover art, so that's a nice thing as a collector. They really put together a nice package with features, packaging, and great restorations. Now in that same vein, I've got a Trip with The Teacher from 1974. This was newly scanned and restored in 2K from the 16mm original camera negatives. So you can imagine it probably didn't have the best source, but they were able to work with it. They got a commentary track out there, original trailers, reversible cover artwork, and again, that cool, you know, white case. So, you know, that's a couple of like their earlier releases. That's when they were more into this sexploitation stuff. And now these next few are more horror movies, and that's, like I said, that's where I really started to get interested because I'm a horror fan. And when they started doing more cult horror and B-movie horror and 80s, 70s, 80s horror, that's when you grabbed my attention, because there was definitely a lack of distributors in that vein. We have Scream Factory. Arrow Video does a little bit of it, but Scream Factory is more mainstream slashers for the most part. They're more of the mainstream horror. Arrow Video does a lot of foreign horror, international horror, and Vinegar Syndrome really takes on those maybe forgotten movies, sort of like Blue Underground does almost. But I've got a couple here. Don't Answer the Phone. I did a written Blu-ray review of this way back in the day when I was writing reviews. It's excellent. This was restored in 4K from the original 35mm. It's got a booklet on the inside. It's got video interviews, commentary tracks. Really, really cool. And it was a recently discovered 35mm camera negative. So, you know, previously they didn't have a great source. It was thought to be lost. Vinegar Syndrome goes out, works with people across the country and across the world to find those prints, and then restores them in 2K or 4K. So now we have this excellent digital backup, which is preserved. You know, you can't lose that, right? I've got it on disc. It's preserved now. It's not just sitting on a 35mm film reel in somebody's basement or some old theater. So that's the kind of great work that they do. They also have The Hearse from 1980. This was a new 2K restoration from the 35mm. So this is the type of movie. It's not all like slashers. Like Don't Answer the Phone is the slasher, very much in the same vein as like Maniac, and where it's kind of it's a low budget slasher serial killer movie. The Hearse is much more like, we're talking witchcraft and occult and things like that. So they do kind of cool movies like that too. It's not all just slashers. They get into different genres. That was a great restoration. And then I have the Ice Cream Man, which stars Clint Howard, Ron Howard's brother. And it also has Olivia Hussey, David Naughton. You know, Olivia Hussey was in Black Christmas, David Naughton from American Werewolf in London. And this was another 2K scan from the 35mm. Now, this is the limited edition slipcover here, which I really liked. This movie's actually from 1994, and this one came out, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. So they've started to branch out past the 80s into the 90s and beyond, which is cool. And then another movie, this is from 1996, and this is Jack Frost. We're talking about, this is not the Jack Frost movie with the little kid and his dad dies in the car accident and he becomes a snowman. It's still a little bit more severe than that. We got basically a killer snowman here. And this is scanned again, 2K from 35mm original elements. We've got new artwork, new video introductions, a commentary track, just amazing, amazing work. And I love the work that Vinegar Syndrome does. The other cool thing you'll notice is that they're easy to find on a shelf because they have a very distinctive packaging. They all have their logo, this little woman on the spine. So, you know, they look great in a shelf. They're very consistent. They're all numbered VS 148, VS 166. So they do a good job of consistency of packaging, and they look great in a shelf, which is, you know, a big deal for some collectors, including myself, who want to display their collections. Now, Vinegar Syndrome has recently gotten into 4K. I haven't had the chance yet to check out any of their 4K releases because they're actually super limited and pretty pricey right now, but they put out the movie Rad on 4K, which is a cult classic. They put out Tammy and the T-Rex, and they're also working on Beastmaster and Dial Code Santa Claus. So they're expanding into 4K. the same way that the Arrow, the Blue Underground, the Scream Factories are. They're keeping up with it, and they actually were into 4K. Tammy and the T-Rex came out well over a year ago, if not 2 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but they've been into the 4K game for some time, and since they do have some great 4K negative scans out there that they could transfer to 4K disc, I'm sure we'll see more from them. But, you know, if you're interested in cult action movies, 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, X-rated sexploitation stuff, slashers, you know, horror, occult, witchcraft, demons, goblins type thing, they are going to be your distributor. You'd really like them, and hopefully this gives you a little background on them. I'll leave links down below to their website so you can check out more of what they have to offer. But the great thing is, because of Family Video's sponsorship of this series, you're going to be able to go to Family Video's website and get a bunch of Vinegar Syndrome movies if you want for a pretty good deal. A lot of the movies on Vinegar Syndrome's site they can be, you know, they're easily $25, $30. Family Video has a sale running right now where most of the titles are 50% off. I saw a lot of things for $10, $12, $15, which is a very good price for Vinegar Syndrome. And if you use the code Video Store, you're able to get 10% off by using my link. So click the link down in the description, go to the Family Video sale, put in the code Video Store, and you'll get 10% off for being a viewer on my channel. I really appreciate the support Family Video has given to this series in particular, but to also my channel as a whole. So please go support them. You're also supporting Vinegar Syndrome, and you're supporting Family Video's Save the Video Store campaign. They're really trying hard to save the video store, save the physical media haven of being able to walk into a store. Family Video is one of the last ones out there, and so they're running this campaign right now online to talk about video stores and their importance, and they want to keep promoting video stores and physical media. So that's what they're all about. If you do run into any stock issues, make sure you keep checking back. Their stuff goes in and out of stock as their website updates. So if you see something out of stock, it could be back the next day. Just check up on it again. But the code's Video Store. Go click the link in the description and you can grab a few titles. Many of the ones I have in my hands right here that I showed you are on sale, as well as other ones like Hobgoblins. There's one called Drug Stories, which is really cool, that I'm gonna pick up, which is all the old like educational PSA drug movies about, like, you know, reefer madness type stuff. That's a really cool release to have in your collection. I'm also picking up some more slasher and horror movies as well. So I'm gonna grab 4 or 5 things and use the code. Hope you guys do as well. But just again, thanks to Family Video for the sponsorship here and working with my channel. And hopefully you guys use that 10% off and get some good deals on Vinegar Syndrome. So thanks for watching this video. If you are interested, like I said, all the links are down in the description. Check those out. Make sure you're subscribed, have your notifications on, and like this video so others will hear about other boutique Blu-ray distributors like Vinegar Syndrome. I will continue this series. I have more that I need to cover. Obviously, I've only done a few episodes. We're going to keep cranking these out as I can do them. So stay tuned for more boutique Blu-ray spotlights, more 4K reviews, more Blu-ray reviews, more collection updates, and anything concerning physical media. You've come to the right place. So thank you for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.